It's a Tuesday morning and you're standing in a dealer's trade-in lane with the keys to a 3-year-old Ute in your hand. You paid 42 grand for it, drive away. It's got 60,000 Ks on it. You've kept it clean, serviced it on the dot. The bloke with the clipboard walks around at once, taps something into his tablet, and offers you $19,000. You do the maths standing right there on the concrete, and the number that comes out is this. That Ute cost you more per kilometre than a Hilux that was 8 grand dearer on day one. The cheap Ute was the expensive one. Nobody at the first dealership mentioned that part. Now, I've spent a lot of years around Utes. I've crawled under them, pulled diffs out of them, chased electrical gremlins through wiring looms that were clearly designed by somebody who'd never had to fix one on the side of a road. And I'll tell you something straight. The Chinese Utes coming into Australia right now are the most interesting thing happening in the whole market. Some of them are genuinely good. A couple of them are outselling machines with 50 years of reputation behind them. That's real. And pretending otherwise would be lying to you. But there's a difference between a good spec sheet and a good Ute. And that difference is measured in years, not test drives. Today I'm going to walk you through 15 cheap Chinese Utes that Australians have come to regret buying, ranked from merely bad decisions all the way down to the genuinely catastrophic ones. And running through all 15 is one thread I want you to hold on to: the brochure price versus what the thing actually costs you to own. Because the gap between those two numbers is where all the regret lives. And near the bottom of this list, there's one Ute that lost its owners more money faster than almost any new vehicle ever sold in this country. Stay for that one, because the story behind it should genuinely annoy you. Let me set the table first, because it matters. A Ute is not a car. A car gets judged on how it drives home from the dealership. A Ute gets judged on year 4, loaded to the axles, 600 Ks from the nearest dealer, in 40-degree heat. The established players, your Hilux, your Ranger, your D-Max, earned their reputations in exactly those conditions, over decades, and the second-hand market pays for that reputation in cold hard cash. The new arrivals are selling you the spec sheet. More torque, more screen, more warranty, less money. Sometimes the spec sheet holds up. Sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, the failure is almost never on the test drive. It's in the corrosion protection you can't see, the parts warehouse you've never visited, the resale market that hasn't voted yet. What you're about to hear is what happens when it doesn't. And every single case comes down to the same question. Who actually pays when a cheap Ute turns out to be cheap? Spoiler, it's never the manufacturer. Right, let's count them down. Number 15, the GWM Canon Alpha plug-in hybrid. I'm starting here because this is the mildest regret on the list, and honesty demands I say so. It's actually a capable thing. 3.5 tons of brake towing, a 5-star safety rating, and it'll crawl over terrain that embarrasses dearer machines. So where's the regret? It's in the living with it. This thing is enormous and heavy, with a turning circle like a cattle ship. The spare wheel sits in a spot that makes getting it out with a loaded tray a genuine wrestling match. There's no cruise control while you're towing, which on a run up the Newell with a van on the back turns into a leg cramp with a postcode, and the cabin never stops talking to you. Owners report the warning chimes start before you're out of the car park. None of that kills the Ute. All of it wears down the owner, one beep at a time. Number 14, the BYD Shark 6. Now hang on, you say, that thing's a sales phenomenon. It is. One of the best-selling four-wheel drive Utes in the country almost overnight, and the plug-in hybrid driveline is genuinely clever. 321 kilowatts, 650 newton meters. The regret isn't the machine, the regret belongs to a very specific buyer. The caravan crowd who saw Ute-shaped metal and assumed Ute-shaped ability. Towing capacity is 2,500 kilos, when the segment standard is 3,500. Hook up a decent van, and once the battery drops to half charge, that little 1.5-litre petrol engine is straining to drag the load and feed the battery at the same time, and your fuel economy goes somewhere ugly. Early cars limited you to 110 with a trailer plugged in, and towing mode switched off some of the driver aids until software updates clean things up. There's no low-range gearing either, and here's why that matters in plain terms. Low range is a set of reduction gears that multiplies torque and slows everything down for crawling, and no amount of electric shove replaces the control it gives you on a steep loose descent with weight on the back. Brilliant commuter, genuinely clever engineering, and I'd happily run one around town. But it's the wrong tool for the big lap, and plenty of people bought it for the big lap because it was shaped like the right tool and priced like a bargain. Number 13, the LDV Terron 9. This is LDV's big new flagship, bigger than a Ranger, 2.5-litre diesel, 163 kilowatts, 520 newton meters, decent 8-speed auto. On the test drive, it feels like a lot of metal for the money, and it is. Here's the problem, and it's a quiet one. Within months of launch, they were already cutting the drive-away price by $3,000 for ABN holders. Now think about what a launch year discount does. Every dollar they knock off the new one comes straight off the value of yours. The bloke who paid full freight in month one is underwater by Christmas. And the Terron 9 has to fight its own showroom because LDV still sells the cheaper T60 right next to it, and its identical twin wears an MG badge across the road. When a manufacturer floods its own segment, the used values get decided in a knife fight, and you're the one holding the asset. Add old-fashioned leaf springs under the tray of a ute pitched partly at families, and a bit of wind noise the size of the body invites, and you've got a machine that's fine to drive and financially soft underneath, which is the sneakiest kind of regret, because nothing ever actually breaks. Number 12, which brings us neatly to that twin, the MG U9. Same bones as the Terron 9, same engine, softer suspension tune with coil springs out back, some genuinely clever party tricks like a tailgate that folds down into a step, and it has landed in this market like a stone in wet cement. We're talking numbers in the region of 90-odd sales in a month, a few hundred for the year. That is orphan territory. Here's why that should scare you more than any mechanical fault. Resale value is just a market's memory, and a ute nobody bought new is a ute nobody wants used. In 5 years, when you go to sell, the buyer will search the name, find nothing, and offer you accordingly. MG pitched it as a family lifestyle ute, and the tradies stayed away because it wasn't offered as a cab chassis or a cheap two-wheel drive workhorse. And the families bought the Shark 6 instead because it had the badge of the moment and a PowerPoint in the tray. Falling between two stools is a slow way to lose money, but it works every time. Number 11, the GWM Cannon, the current one. Cheapest four-wheel drive dual cab in Australia, roughly $39.5 drive away, and I'll be straight with you. As a pure tool for the money, it's not a bad piece of gear. The regret here is death by electronics. The steering assistance grabs at the wheel like a nervous driving instructor. The gear selector is an ergonomic riddle. Owners of earlier ones fought climate control systems that couldn't hold a temperature in an Australian summer, which in this country is not a luxury complaint. And the driver monitoring scolds you for glancing at your own mirrors. You can switch some of it off. It comes back every time you start the car. So every single morning, for as long as you own it, you perform the same little ritual of menus before you can drive your own ute in peace. Individually trivial. Multiplied by 2,000 mornings, that's a relationship. Number 10, the JAC T9. Arrived late in 2024, priced sharp, and the reviewers gave it credit for tough looks and honest value. But the numbers tell you the story before you turn a wheel. 120 kilowatts and 410 newton meters in a segment where 500 is the ante. Load it up and the power delivery goes lumpy. All lag, then all at once, then nothing. Which you feel most exactly where you least want to. Merging onto a highway with a trailer or pulling out to overtake a road train. Towing tops out at 3,200 kilos, just under the magic number everybody actually wants. And in this country, 300 kilos is the difference between towing your van and towing most of your van. And when people who genuinely understand vehicle engineering have pulled one apart on camera to see how it's screwed together underneath, the verdict was, let's say, not a love letter. It's not a disaster. It's a ute that's 90% of the way there, sold to people who needed the last 10%, and the last 10% is always the expensive part to be missing. Number 9, the new Foton Tunland. Foton walked out of the Australian market and stayed gone for more than 8 years. Then in 2025, it strolled back in with a new Tunland priced under 40 grand and asked us all to pretend the first exit never happened. The sales figures suggest Australians remember. Registrations in the double digits per month. And here's the thing about a brand on its second attempt. Every question you'd ask of a new brand, you now have to ask twice. How deep is the dealer network? How long do the parts take? What happens if they leave again because they've already shown you they will? A ute is a 10-year promise, and Foton has already broken one of those to this country. The machine itself might be fine. The promise behind it has a documented history, and that history has a trade in value and it's low. Number 8, the GWM Steed. This was Great Wall's mid-decade reboot, about 30 grand drive away, and it was honest about what it was, a farm tool. But even judged as a farm tool, it was underbuilt. Manual gearbox only, no automatic at any price, 171 millimeters of ground clearance, which is 40 short of what a working four-wheel drive needs, so the first decent rut owned it. 2,000 kilos of towing, when everything else did 3 or more. Then the ownership stories started. Diesel models that wouldn't start on cold mornings, electrical faults that hopscotched around the vehicle faster than autosparkies could chase them, and a thin bench of people who even knew how to work on them. And because there was no automatic, the huge slice of the market that wanted one. Fleets, families, anyone with a knee complaint never even walked into the showroom, which meant the used market for your Steed was thin before you'd done your first oil change. The Steed's whole pitch was that it was too simple to break. It found ways. Number 7, the original Foton Tunland, the one from the 2010s. And this one, I'll admit, half breaks my heart, because the recipe was clever. Buy proven parts from famous suppliers and bolt them into a cheap body. The engine was a genuine Cummins diesel, a proper 2.8-litre unit from the same family of engines you'll find working in light trucks all over the world. And anybody who's been around Cummins gear knows those engines are built by people who expect them to do hard time. And the strategy worked right up until Foton left the country, at which point every Tunland in Australia became an orphan with a great engine. Body panels, trim, electronics, the boring bits that actually strand vehicles, all of it turned into a treasure hunt. Safety kit was thin even by the standards of its day. So owners ended up in the strangest spot in this whole list. A driveline that could outlast the decade, wrapped in a vehicle they couldn't get a door handle for. A ute is a system, and a system is only as good as its worst supply line. Number 6, the LDV T60 Max, the current volume seller. This is the one you'll actually be cross-shopped on today, sitting around the mid-40s before on-roads, with a muscular twin-turbo diesel on the spec sheet. Here's what the spec sheet doesn't say. The diesel particulate filter, the emissions trap in the exhaust, needs regular long highway runs to clean itself out. They call the process regeneration. Forget the word, all it means is the exhaust has to get hot enough, for long enough to burn the trapped soot to ash. And that takes 20 or 30 minutes at highway speed. The T60 is notoriously sulky about it. Use it as a city and suburbs ute, the exact life most of them lead, and the filter chokes, the warning lights come on, and you're in for cleaning cycles or replacement. The 8-speed auto has its moods too. Delayed engagement from cold, hesitation at crawling speeds, and the electronics can throw the whole thing into limp mode over a stray signal. And the market has noticed. Sales fell off a cliff, down more than 30% in a year. Falling sales today are falling resale tomorrow. That's not opinion, that's arithmetic. Number 5, the Great Wall V240. Cast your mind back to the early 2010s. The V240 was the diesel version of Great Wall's first serious crack at this market. A 2-litre turbo diesel in a body that looked the part from across a car park, and only from across a car park. The engineering was a generation behind on the day it landed. The refinement was agricultural, and the crash protection was the kind of thing you just quietly hoped you'd never have to test. But the true regret arrived later, when Great Wall's original arrangement in Australia ended in a legal brawl with its own distributor, and the brand's presence went dark while the lawyers sorted it out. Warranty support, parts flow, dealer knowledge, all of it went murky exactly when the earliest owners needed it most. Owners learned to source filters by part number from overseas sellers, and to keep a mechanic who was willing to guess. You can forgive a cheap ute for being crude. Crude can even be fixable. What owners couldn't forgive was being left holding it alone, because a ute without a brand behind it isn't a bargain anymore, it's a project. Number 4, the Great Wall SA220. This was the icebreaker, the very first Great Wall ute into Australia back in 2009. And the reason it was so cheap is that almost nothing on it was new. The petrol engine was built to an old design borrowed from a Japanese engine that had been honest work in the 1980s. Rear drum brakes, springs off a dray, an interior assembled from the hardest plastics ever sold to the public. People bought them because they were nearly 10 grand cheaper than anything else with a tray. And look, as a paddock hack that never saw a highway, some of them did the job. But plenty went to first car buyers and small businesses who put them on real roads at real speeds in a machine whose crash worthiness belonged to a different century. Cheap found its level. It always does. The second-hand ads for these things now read like apologies. Number 3, the Great Wall V240, the petrol twin of the V200, and the one that gave us the single most extraordinary recall story in this whole saga. In 2012, Australian authorities discovered that thousands of Great Wall and Sherry vehicles had been sold here with gaskets containing asbestos. Asbestos in the engine and exhaust of new vehicles, sold in a country that had banned the stuff outright years earlier. Around 23,000 vehicles were caught up in it. Now, the risk to a driver sitting in the cabin was assessed as low, and I'm not here to tell you otherwise. But think about what it told you. It told you the supply chain behind your ute wasn't being checked against the laws of the country it was sold in. Every mechanic who worked on one had to be warned. Every owner had to explain it at trade-in time. The V240 was already slow, thirsty, and crude. After that, it was radioactive at resale in every way but the literal one. Number 2. The early LDV T60, the 2017 to 2019 cars, and this is where regret stops being an annoyance and becomes a fight. These utes rusted. Not surface rust on a scratch tray, rust from within, forming between body panels, where you couldn't see it until it bloomed through the paint, in vehicles marketed as go-anywhere workhorses. Body shops who opened them up talked about thin steel and skimpy protection in the seams, and here's the mechanism in one sentence. When two panels overlap, moisture wicks into the join, and if the steel in that join wasn't properly coated at the factory, corrosion starts on the inside where no wash, no wax, and no inspection can reach it. And by the time you can see it, it's already won. And when owners came knocking, some got looked after, and some got told, with a straight face, that parking near the beach was an operating condition the ute wasn't designed for. In Australia, a ute. It ended up in court filings. Stack on top of that the infotainment screens that died or took the air conditioning down with them, the stereo that reset itself to full volume, the flat batteries, and owners waiting over a year for crash parts, and you get the full picture. The drive-away price was the cheapest thing that ever happened to those owners, and everything after it was the bill. And number 1, the catastrophic one. The LDV T60, Australia's first electric ute. Listen to this spec sheet like you're hearing it for the first time. Rear-wheel drive only, no four-wheel drive at any price. Towing capacity around a tonne, a third of what the diesel version of the same ute pulls. About 330 kilometres of claimed range before you've loaded a single toolbox. No autonomous emergency braking, no lane keeping, no adaptive cruise, no safety rating. Now the price, $92,990. That made a two-wheel drive work ute with no safety suite, the most expensive mid-size ute in the entire country, dearer than a Ranger Raptor, more than double the diesel T60 parked beside it in the same showroom. And the engineering underneath told the same story as the price list. A single motor of 130 kilowatts on the rear axle, a big heavy battery, and hardware packaged in ways that made experienced people wince when they looked under the tray. Almost nobody bought one, and the ones who did found out what the market really thought the moment they tried to sell. Across the Tasman, the thing was eventually discounted by tens of thousands of dollars just to move the last of them, which tells you exactly how much air was in that original number. It wasn't a bad idea, an electric ute. It was a half-finished idea sold at a triple finish price, and the buyers, mostly businesses trying to do the right thing by their emissions targets, paid for the manufacturer's education. That should make you angry. It makes me angry. Now here's the part of this that actually matters, because it would be easy to walk away thinking the lesson is, don't buy Chinese, and that is not the lesson. Some of these companies are learning faster than any car makers in history. The lesson is about where the money moves. Follow it with me. There is no money in telling you a vehicle's 5-year cost. There is a great deal of money in telling you its drive-away price. The entire cheap ute business model rests on that gap. The importer books the sale the day you drive off. Depreciation, downtime, parts delays, and warranty fights are your department. The finance company doesn't mind either way. The repayments are on the sticker price, not the resale. The dealer makes more margin and less warranty grief on the established brands, so guess where the goodwill flows when your claim gets marginal? And when a brand misjudges the market, or leaves it, or gets caught with something it shouldn't have shipped, no executive's ute loses half its value overnight. Yours does. Nobody in that chain is twirling a moustache. Every one of them is just responding to their own numbers. But notice that in the whole transaction, exactly one party is holding the asset for 10 years, and it's the party with the least information. That's not a conspiracy. That's just how the game is scored. And they're counting on you not knowing the score. And I think there's something underneath even that. A ute, a real one, is one of the last honest machines ordinary people buy. It's judged by what it does, not what it says about you. When you buy one, you're not really buying steel and diesel. You're buying the years of boring, unglamorous engineering discipline that makes steel and diesel trustworthy. The testing nobody films, the supplier. Some accountant wasn't allowed to swap out to save 4 cents. The old brands charge you for that discipline, and it's real and it's worth something. The new brands are racing to build it, and some of them will get there, genuinely. But discipline can't be shipped in a container. It has to be proven. One Australian summer at a time, one loaded trip at a time, one 10-year-old example, still starting on the first crank at a time. Until it's proven, you're not a customer, you're the proof. So here's what I want you to take away. First, when you're comparing utes, never compare purchase prices, compare exit prices. Look up what the 3-year-old version of each contender actually sells for today and subtract. That one habit would have saved every owner in this video most of their pain. Second, before you sign anything, search the model name next to the words problems, recall and parts delay, and read owners, not launch reviews. Launch reviews are about week 1 and regret lives in year 4. Third, ring a parts department, any parts department, and ask how long a headlight and a front guard take to land for the ute you're considering. The length of the pause tells you everything. Fourth, if you tow, check the real towing behavior, not the rating, because as we've seen, the number on the brochure and the experience at half battery on a long grade can be different animals. And fifth, if a discount looks too generous, remember that a big discount on a new one is a message about what your used one will be worth, written in numbers instead of words. Do those 5 things, and here's the moment I want for you. A few years from now, you're the one standing in that trade-in lane, and the bloke with the clipboard walks around your ute, and the number he offers doesn't knock the wind out of you, because you chose the machine that holds its story together. That feeling costs nothing. It's just knowledge, applied early. Now it's your turn, and I mean that. Tell me in the comments below, what's the ute in your driveway? How many Ks is it wearing? And what's the one thing it's done, good or bad, that the brochure never mentioned? I especially want to hear from you if you own one of the 15, whether you're furious or whether yours has been a quiet legend, because both stories are true and both belong on the record. Where you are in the country matters too, coastal, outback, city, because these machines live very different lives. I read every single one of these comments, all of them, and honestly, the things you lot report from your own driveways are half the reason this channel knows anything. If this saved you $1 or a headache, subscribe, because next time we're flipping the coin, the utes, some of them dirt cheap and second-hand, that quietly run past 500,000 kilometers, and the one engine on that list that mechanics privately admit they've never once seen worn out. That one surprised even me. Until then, buy the ownership, not the sticker, and I'll see you in the next one.